Imagine drafting a team that you absolutely loved, full of players with off-season hype and huge potential. Then, imagine having a team that couldn't even score you 100 points a week in fantasy football. Today we're looking at two of the worst teams you could have drafted in 2023. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there today, where we're taking a look at two of the worst teams you could have drafted last season. Now, I have no doubt that if you had one of these teams, you wanted to quit paying attention by like week 4, which absolutely sucks because as you were heading into the season, you liked what you saw on paper. But are there some of you out there kind of looking for a way to get that fantasy fix? Right now, Underdog Fantasy is having playoff best ball leagues. Yes, that means you can go and draft a team right now based off the players who are remaining in the playoffs. You can get in a draft for as little as $3 and have some absolute fun here throughout the NFL playoffs, but maybe you don't have an Underdog account just yet. Don't worry, it's not too late. So head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and create a new account using the referral code Headliners when you do so. By doing that, we're going to make sure that your deposit is matched up to $100. No, you don't have to deposit $100, but they'll match it up to $100, so it's definitely worth the free money. Plus, Kyle and I are going to be dropping links to Underdog Fantasy all off-season long, not just during the playoffs, but all off-season for some best ball leagues as well. You don't want to miss out on that, so be sure to sign up now. But okay, let's go ahead and get back to these teams we're talking about here today. And we actually did this just last week with the best teams you could have drafted in 2023. So if you haven't watched that video yet, be sure to, because I said something in that video. I'm going to say it again here today. It doesn't matter what strategy you bring into fantasy football. Every single one of them have a chance to fail. There isn't some foolproof format to follow when you're playing fantasy football. Some people like to go heavy running back early. Some people like wide receivers early. Both ways could have absolutely buried you in 2023. So let's go ahead and dive into these two teams. Now, the parameters that I used here in this little exercise, it's all done in half PPR scoring, and I used their numbers from weeks 1 through 17. I did not include week 18. A lot of players don't play week 18. By then, 95% of fantasy football leagues are already over with, so we're stopping at week 17. But most importantly, I used realistic ADP to build these teams. But you gotta remember, as we're going through these teams, you gotta remove everything that you know that happened in 2023 and try to think back to last August when you were drafting these fantasy football teams. A lot of these players, a lot of people were pumped up to draft, and then they absolutely bombed. So let's go ahead and start off for those that like wide receiver early. And just because we're trying to build the best possible team we can going wide receiver early, let's go Justin Jefferson in the first round. A lot of people super pumped to take Justin Jefferson early. He finished as the wide receiver 38 overall in fantasy football, missed 7 games. How about in the second round? We went with Jalen Waddle. Big upside in that offense, right? A lot of people say, hey, I'll take him as my number 2. He finished as wide receiver 29 and missed 3 games this season. How about in the third round? Ramondre Stevens season part 2 is what we were all looking forward to. Then he missed 5 games and finished as the running back 33 overall. In the fourth round, shoring up that running back room with Aaron Jones. Man, 2 stud wide receivers and 2 stud running backs. This right here looked like a recipe for success. Not so much, because Aaron Jones missed 6 games and finished as the RB 40 overall. In the fifth round, this is where we had Darren Balls to the Waller. A lot of people expecting huge things from Darren Waller because all throughout training camp, Daniel Jones only looked the way of Darren Waller. He finished as the tight end 24 and missed 5 games. How about back-to-back second-year wide receivers in the 6th and the 7th, Christian Watson and Drake London? Now, we know that Christian Watson, he never stays healthy. Dude is now referred to as Fantasy Bigfoot around here because he only makes sightings in your fantasy football lineups. But Watson finished as the wide receiver 61, while Drake London finished as wide receiver 40. How about in the 8th round? Got a little bit sneaky with the running back position and went Dalvin Cook. Don't forget, Aaron Rodgers coming into the Jets. This offense needing a little bit of a push at the running back position because Breece Hall, coming off of a torn ACL, was not 100% to start the season. Dalvin Cook finished as RB72. How about in the 9th round, going quarterback, Deshaun Watson. He missed 11 games, finished as the quarterback 35 overall. In the 10th round, you went Zach Charbonnet of the Seattle Seahawks. Many people expected this to be a two-back backfield in Seattle. Zach Charbonnet finished as the RB48. How about in the 11th round, Samaje Perine, Sean Payton taking over that offense in Denver. He's always used two backs, right, with Ingram and Kamara. We knew that Javonte Williams wasn't 100% healthy. Samaje Perine went out and finished as RB43 in the 12th round. Sky Moore. Somebody had to soak up targets there in Kansas City to start with. Wasn't really Sky Moore. This dude finished as the wide receiver 105. How about in the 13th? Tank Bigsby. So many people thought Tank Bigsby was drafted to really take away a lot of the role of Travis Etienne. Tank Bigsby finished as running back 87. And then the 14th and 15th round, we had the New England Patriots, who finished as the 23rd ranked defense. And then Graham Gano, he missed 9 games and ended up being the 33rd rated kicker on the season. But if you take away everything that you know that happened in the 2023 season, overall on paper, this team looks pretty good. Had I had this team heading into 2023, I honestly wouldn't hate it. But this team has no players on it that finished inside the top 24 at the position. The only position, I guess you could say, to make it inside the top 24 was the New England defense, and they finished as DST 23. But what really killed this team the most is injuries. The drafted starting lineup on this team missed a combined total of 54 games. The highest scoring wide receiver on the team was Jalen Waddle, and he finished as wide receiver 29. The highest scoring running back was Ramondre Stevenson, and the dude missed 5 games this season, if that tells you anything. Now, if you take their overall average fantasy points per game and you put the best guys in their lineup, this lineup barely cracks 90 fantasy points a week, averaging 92.9 points per game in 2023. That's almost 50 fantasy points per game less than the best overall wide receiver early team that we discussed in last week's video. But all right, maybe running back early was a little bit better. Let's go ahead and take a look at that roster. In the first round, you went with Austin Eckler. You felt good about yourself. And then he finished RB29 on the season. But we're going heavy running back, so in the second round, you were able to nab Nick Chubb. That didn't work out either. He finished as RB86 because he got hurt in week 2. Then in the third round, you're looking at wide receiver, and T. Higgins is standing there, a guy who's been verged top 12 for multiple years. He finished as wide receiver 46. In the fourth round, we went Miles Sanders. Remember, they brought him into Carolina during free agency. He was supposed to have a 3-down role. Dude finishes RB53. In the fifth round, Joe Burrow, he finished as quarterback 25 because he could not stay healthy. In the sixth round, how about Chris Godwin? Not a bad wide receiver too. He's produced in fantasy football for years, right? He finishes the wide receiver 32 overall. In the seventh round, A.J. Dillon, a solid bench piece, right? A guy that's going to go out and get 200 touches. I just need him every once in a while. He finished as RB39. In the eighth round, Pat Freiermuth, tight end of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, honestly, at this point of the draft, you're just looking for somebody who's going to get some volume. That was supposed to be Pat Freiermuth. He finished as the overall tight end 30. In the ninth round, Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Now, a lot of people know what to expect from Gabe Davis. A whole lot of up and down. Everyone knows that, and that's why you draft him so late. But Gabe Davis went out and finished as wide receiver 37. But how about we switch things up just a little bit? We wanted a good defense and a top kicker in this roster. So in the 10th round, we went with the Philadelphia Eagles. Ouch, that backfired because they finished as the overall 26th rated defense in fantasy football. But how about Tyler Bass, right? High-powered offense. Dude's gonna go out there and put up a ton of points. He was the overall 16th kicker in fantasy football. How about the 12th round? Stud rookie Quentin Johnston going to LA? Kellen Moore, a new offensive coordinator? Absolutely sign me up for that, especially since we know that Mike Williams is going to get hurt, which he did. Quentin Johnston finished as wide receiver 76 in the 13th round. Let's also get a stud running back in here. Roschon Johnson was scheduled to come in and take this job in Chicago. Roschon Johnson, running back 47 on the season. 14th round, Jameson Williams. He was going to be suspended, right? He was going to miss some time. But in this Lions offense, 100% healthy, definitely primed for a huge bounce back year. Jameson Williams was wide receiver 81. And then to wrap it up in the 15th round, you had Chigioco, the tight end in Tennessee. He was slotted for huge target volume. Then they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, maybe the ceiling is brought down a little bit, but this is a very athletic tight end that's involved in the passing game. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins. They drafted Will Levis. They want to throw the ball a little bit more. Chigioco finished as the tight end 23 overall on the season. But really, this team was dead early on. Nick Chubb, he was injured back in week 2. Miles Sanders only had 117 total touches on the season after week 2. Austin Eckler, injured in week 1. He missed some time. Joe Burrow, he only had 5 healthy games all year long, and you know that affected the production of T. Higgins. Mike Evans in Tampa Bay ate up everything the start of the season, didn't really leave anything for Chris Godwin. What about Gabe Davis? He had 5 games this year where he had 0 freaking receptions. Now, if you take their season averages and fantasy points per game, even a fully healthy lineup would have only averaged 81.5 fantasy points per game in 2023. That's almost 60 fantasy points lower than the best overall early running back team that we talked about last week. If you had this team, you struggled, no doubt. But just like always, we want to make it a learning experience, right? So what did we learn here today? Number 1, you can do all the research and all the prep in the world. That does not make you exempt from drafting players that get hurt. It happens every single season. But then number 2, this is why it's so important to follow not only during the season, but all off season as well. When you need to pivot to another player on the waiver wire or make some pretty important trades, you need to know what it is that you're looking for. And then lastly, number 3 here on the list, there is no such thing as the best strategy to use in fantasy football. I see people saying that all the time. No matter what strategy you use, you need luck. Sometimes the luck just doesn't go in your favor, especially for those that drafted teams like this. But I'm curious, after going through these teams, are there any players on either one of these rosters that you look at and you'd be like, you mother, just absolutely killed you in 2023? I have a feeling a lot of people are going to say Austin Eckler if I had to guess one name, but leave those comments down below. I'd love to see some of the players that you felt absolutely killed you in 2023. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.